Okay. In it, blood. Hi and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben. Today we're talking about a Sky original series called Bloods. So if you're in the UK, you probably will be able to see this. If you're outside of the UK, it's going to take a while. Depends on who buys the British content. Sometimes you get it on Netflix, sometimes you get it on HBO. It just depends on who gets the license. But for now, let's jump in. When tough acting loner Malik is paired with over-friendly divorcee Wendy, their partnership looks dead on arrival. But pretty soon they're giving each other life support. So Jane Horrocks stars as Wendy and Samson Kayo stars as Malik. So when it comes to English comedy, especially dry comedy, it can be a bit hit or miss. And Samson Kayo we recently saw, or you may recently have seen, in Truth Seekers, in Amazon's original sci-fi comedy. And that's actually been cancelled, unfortunately. And for the most part, that series I thought was good, but there is definitely those jokes that hit and definitely those jokes that missed, although comedy is very subjective. And I think you'll find the same thing here. Although I do feel like the jokes here hit more. It's more like you hear something and you come back to it in your mind afterwards and you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty funny. It may be the sort of thing that you talk about afterwards with your friends and you go like, oh, do you remember that bit when? Kind of like Monty Python.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't.
Jokes, when you talk about it, it becomes funny. It's not as good as that, but it is funny, and I feel like the comedy lands more often than not. At the central focus of this comedy series, we have, at the beginning, we see Malik electrocuting, it's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, electrocuting his partner, and so he gets a new partner. Oh my! In the form of Wendy, and they're so from opposite worlds that alone makes it interesting and funny to see how they interact with each other. It's like Wendy is definitely a fish out of water to this world, Malik's world.
What are you doing?
I'm Wendy!
Although immediately she is liked by the rest of the crew, and it seems like Malik isn't liked, and so we have that weird dynamic how she gels with the rest of the ambulance crew people or the medical staff, and Malik just feels like he's a fish out of water in his own world. So you put those two together and they kind of form a cohesive normal human being, which makes it interesting when they're on their own or when one works without the other, or how they're actually doing medical procedures. It is very, very dry comedy at times, and I think it works when it's at its driest. I think when they've been brave with whether that kind of comedy beat is going to work, that's when I think it really works. I really hope they keep to that formula, because I think that is when the beat, you have the beat of comedy, it's kind of like the afterthought that you don't realize that you're really enjoying it, but then you get to that episode, the end of the episode, and you're like, huh, I actually really enjoyed that. That's what I felt like when watching this series. So I do feel like comedy is subjective, although sometimes when you're watching something, you just feel like, yeah, this is kind of really working. And I felt like because our two main protagonists feel at home with each other, although they're from different worlds and fish out of water, you just feel like their partnership is going to work in the long run. That puts you at ease. Also, the writing is quite dynamic. It's quite quick and quirky because of that dry writing. So I think it's been polished to a place where you feel comfortable with what you're watching. Sometimes you can watch series like this and you just feel like, I don't feel like this is as good as it needs to be, or just some of the language just doesn't quite hit. There were a couple of moments like that in this series where I was like, yeah, they're pushing me to laugh at that moment, and I don't think it's funny, so that didn't make me giggle, it just made me cringe a bit. Couple of moments, but for the most part it really worked. The filming is exactly what you'd expect from a British dry comedy. It's set around the London area, and so you can see that in places like you're like, oh, I kind of know that area, I know what they're going to do with that sequence. There's a moment, for example, where these kids from, I guess, a housing estate or a big set of flats do a prank or a joke, and that scene just fits into me exactly what I was expecting from a series like this. And I hope they keep pushing it forward like that. They kind of develop those characters and give us a bit of backstory to make us care a little bit, although really that's not what it's about. There are other side characters that I also thought were fantastic. You'll notice a few people are like, I've seen them before, I love watching them on screen.
Do they do mental?
I don't think so, Loz. There's a sign there that says it's not a shop for absolute pussies.
It's that kind of series, especially from other various British comedies or dramas. You'll see them and you'll be like, yeah, I know that person. And then when you see them on screen, you're like, okay, I get what they're doing with this now. I feel at home with this comedy series. I know what they're going to do. So from a UK person, I think you're going to enjoy this. But if you're not used to dry British humor, I think it's going to be hit or miss for some people. You're going to be like, what is this comedy series on about? Or you're going to be like, this is brilliant, I need more of this. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about, I guess it's on tonight at Sky 10 p.m, but let me know what you thought when you eventually see it. Are you looking forward to more of this? I believe the creator and the main protagonist, the guy who plays Malik, Samson, Kayo, I think, he is the creator of this. I'm hoping it does well for him. I'm going to give this a solid B+. Chat to me in the comments below about this, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.